Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marvel Plus podcast, a show where we talk the Marvel shows on Disney Plus and how they connect to the MCU. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live every Sunday over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 at 7 p.m. Eastern. Join the chat if you're a subscriber over there. I'd love to have you in on all the fun theory talk and conversation, but if you can't catch it live, that's a-okay. Go over to YouTube the very next day where it drops at 12 noon Eastern. Give it a watch, give it a listen over there, and show your support. We'd love you for it. Today, we're talking, not a series per se, talking on the movie, talking Thor, Love, and Thunder. So, what do we think of the movie? Overall, it was okay. Now, why do I say it was okay? Obviously, we're not doing a full recap here story-wise, so just my general thoughts. The movie was okay. I felt like it was a movie of two halves. One half, the beginning half, very comical and comedy driven, and then the second half was more buckled down story and like stakes, I guess you could say. And I know there's a lot of mixed reactions online to this film. Fair. I'm going to shout out Mr. Badbit on Twitter. I think he put it the best way. He said, this is, now I apologize if I'm pronouncing the director's name incorrectly. This is a Taika film. If you like Taika and his style, you're going to love this movie. If you don't like his style, you're not going to like this movie. And I feel like he really relies on this comedic styling. And Ragnarok was good for it, but I felt like this, at points, either tried too hard or they did too much, and it kind of made Thor look like a doofus, in my opinion. Now, I understand, where we're coming from with the first two films. Obviously, in the grand scheme of Marvel movies, they probably are on the lower side of things. People hate Dark World. I was fine with Dark World. I get it. You wanted to change the character so people kind of related to them more, kind of wanted to cheer him on more. I used this example with Mrs. G as we left the movie. Aquaman. Everybody was making fun of Aquaman, comic-wise, TV-wise, before the movie came out. And then the Momoa movie came out, and they try to make him cool and edgy and stuff like that. So they changed the character to make it more appealing, I guess, maybe to a general audience. I feel like Thor is that character. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against this, comedic Thor. I just felt like in this movie, it was a little maybe not. Yeah, it just was over the top a little bit. Whether it was how he was dealing with, his loss. Obviously, we've seen that for the past couple of movies with Infinity War and Endgame. We saw him hit the low point in Infinity War with obviously getting out of shape and drinking a lot and stuff like that. This felt like a whole nother level of it when I thought he had already had this moment of healing and growth. Now he's making up narratives on his past relationship with Jane and telling stories to supposedly his friends of oh, this is how it was when it wasn't that way. And so the Guardians are in this movie as well, for whatever reason. And he just kind of comes in, does his thing, wrecks shop, saves the day, whatever, with little to no repercussions or care, it seems. He's doing it for the right reasons, but when he causes problems, he destroyed a structure, it didn't seem like he had too much remorse for it. It felt almost like this weird, was it my fault? I don't know, maybe. He didn't just come out and apologize. He had to be this weird tiptoey stylistic around it, but whatever. So the first half of the movie I didn't really care for, along with some other items of the film. Obviously the whole theme of this movie was love, and with the return of Jane in here and that relationship, rekindling that, and then Gore and his daughter, their relationship. Gore was fine. The God Butcher, I think was the name, I thought it was God Killer, but that was fine. That made sense to me. The Jane stuff makes sense to me too. At points it felt a little cringe and like out of character from the earlier movies, but I get it. Growth, whatever. The weapons, though, being all jealous and like having sentient, is that the terminology? Like being aware of things, I didn't care for. I get it was funny for a laugh here or there to see the axe kind of pivot in or rotate in or whatever. That just seemed odd to me. So I didn't care for that. We had a fun Easter egg and appearance of the goats. I don't know specifically the goats' names, but I know the goats have made an appearance for Thor as like methods of, transporting some type of vehicle that he's been in. So fun to see that. The screaming part of the goats was stupid. And it reminded me of, what's that video game with the goats? Goat Simulator. And there was another commercial ages ago, I think it was Geico or something, with the screaming goat. Just remind me of that. I thought that was dumb. And then we get the God courtroom. A mixed bag on the courtroom of gods. We'll get some motivation for them later that might turn them around, which I appreciated. Russell Crowe as Zeus was fine, but it was weird how they're just like, all right, we're here to meet in this room just to be up our own butt, and then, oh yeah, we're gonna plan that next orgy. Not a joke. Odd choice there. Interesting to see all the other gods, or at least some of the other gods. Brings up the question about the Moon Knight gods, or Khonshu, and the rest of the Egyptian deities. Are they not part of these meetings? Are they lower class, like apparently the Asgardian ones are? Hard to say. It was interesting. I thought there was going to be more of like a Colosseum-esque type thing with this courtroom. Like they could still do the like pantheon of gods and all setting and whatever, but I thought there would be some kind of altercation or Colosseum fight where maybe Hercules shows up or Thor shows up and has to deal with some kind of beast or monster for their entertainment to get this kind of moment with Zeus to talk with him about the plan to recruit the army. But no, instead we got, oh, you guys are chatting during my speech, come over here, I'm gonna flick your clothes off as your disguise. Haha, that was a funny moment. Get that, and then this whole, like, it's just about the Thunderbolt, not the lightning bolt, the Thunderbolt. Interesting. Like I said, they will get a motivation later that I do appreciate, that we kind of get a little bit of a character growth with them. Just interesting way to depict it. And like, that's the whole thing with this film in its entirety, is like, if you like this film, totally fine. You had fun with it, you had a good time with it, great. I, on the other hand, didn't hate it. It was just like, it wasn't, I didn't line up 100% with what they were throwing down, I guess you could say. Like I said, the second half, which I'm going to talk about now, I did really enjoy a lot. I did enjoy the overall story. It's just some aspects of this film I was like, it's not clicking with me. So let's talk about that second half, shall we? So combat was great. Whenever we had a fight scene, a lot of different ways that we used the axe, the hammer, Valkyrie with the bolt, along with her daggers and her sword. Good stuff there. Fun, exciting. We had some team moves with, the Thors, along with the kids later on, which was fine. The combat was all good in those fight scenes. Mighty Thor, Jane Foster, fantastic. Cool to see her back involved in these projects. I don't know the full story of her thing in Marvel. Like, obviously, she's in the first two Thors, didn't show up in Avengers, might have been unhappy about a director thing, but this got her back in, which is cool. The movie's conclusion may kind of answer why she was okay with being back with the fate of Jane, but we'll never know. She looked great. Her armor looked great. Her moveset looked great. I honestly did not know much about the character history for Jane, and learning that she had cancer and then looking up before this podcast and realizing, yeah, that was the thing from the comics. cool to have them tie in. Unfortunately, really shitty, for that character, because I did want to see more of Jane in this universe. Unfortunately, R.I.P. does die at the end of this, but goes to Valhalla. Post credits. It's interesting. Well, not interesting. It's sad that we're not going to see more of her in this role, but it was cool that we got this opportunity. Similar to how we talked about Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, I feel like this is another fan service-esque moment. Like, hey, you've been invested in the Marvel Comics for a while. Here's a bone that we're going to throw you of this cool moment that we can do. And surprisingly enough, nothing tied into multiverse. I thought that was going to be the case here. Why she was showing up, this multiverse, the time, fuckery that's going on with Loki, and the whole, oh crap, I'm blanking on the guy's name, Kang situation. Like, I thought that was going to be how we're going to play Jane getting the hammer here, Mjolnir, but instead we just forged it back together as she was allowed to use the power. Alright, so yeah, original Jane going through with that, but yeah, good stuff. She did great. And then a small thing, just from my POV, cool to see Lady Sif back. We did get a recap with Korg, obviously, about like Thor and his loss over time. His mom, his dad, his brother, like 8 times. The Warriors 3, which we kind of shit on by not even giving them names. And then, yeah, to see Lady Sif back here after kind of disappearing and not being around in Ragnarok, I think, if I recall correctly. But that was a question, like, she wasn't on the ship at the very end of Ragnarok. Did she die? Where was she at? Cool to see her back. Unfortunately lost an arm, but even if she's back in a small role, nice to see her around and return. Okay, so let's talk about the God Butcher. I know little to nothing about gore, as I'm sure most of the people watching this film do. Was it Michael? Jesus Christ, is that his name? Oh man, blanking on Christian Bale. Why the fuck did I say Michael? Christian Bale did fantastic, I think, in this role. We got his origin right at the beginning, his motivations as a character, why he is, trying to kill the gods, praises this one god, wants help and wants the god to save his child, his daughter. Food, water, shelter, as they're kind of roaming the desert here. Would have been nice to maybe know why they're roaming the desert, but I digress. Wants the god to save his daughter. Daughter dies. He finally stumbles upon this oasis where the god is hanging out, and the god pretty much lays it out like, we're not gonna, there's no end game here of you praising us. It's literally you just are there essentially for our entertainment. And finds the Necro Sword and takes care of him, and then that's his motivation, is all these gods who are giving out these false messages, or maybe it's from a belief standpoint, false goals, and he's going to get his revenge this way by taking them out. I thought that was good. I thought it was a nice way that they introduced it and made us not care essentially for this character, but they felt earned. It just wasn't like a throwaway, toss away, like, we need a bad guy, here you go. I thought this one was handled a little bit better. So, good stuff there. Towards the end of the film, obviously we get Gore's moment with achieving the goal of getting to eternity, the center of the universe, and making his wish. The story took a little bit of a turn that I didn't think it was going to take. I almost thought like this was going to be a double traitorous situation, or like false belief, where obviously at the beginning of the movie, we saw Gore praying to this god, realizing it was a false idol. I thought that was going to be kind of the situation here. He was going to get to eternity, he was going to be all happy, and, eternity was going to be like, nah, you're not, there's no dream here, prophecy here, we can't do whatever you want. And then either he would have died, or been like, shook up again because of this false faith that he had placed. But no, he does get to make his wish, and instead of defeating the villain in combat, we defeat the villain with the power of love. Totally fine with this. He decides to use his wish to resurrect his daughter. He does die because of the curse of the Necrosword, and how it's infected him by using it. And now the daughter's back. And concluding this film, Thor is now watching over the daughter, and we got the little team up there of Love and Thunder. Interesting choice going forward for Thor. Not a bad one. Just obviously not where I thought this was going. And I'm curious as to what the deal with the daughter is. She appears to have some kind of powers, as she does shoot a projectile out of her eyes at Thor at one point when making her breakfast. Is this power one of her own that she naturally had before passing? Or, which I think is the more likely thing, is this a power from eternity itself? At the very end, when the daughter is resurrected, we kind of see this, like, purple outline silhouette of her as it then transfers up to seeing her and her father. So I assume she's getting this power from eternity. I don't know if this is a pre-established character that will be tying into Young Avengers or whatever the hell. But it's going to be an interesting relationship to see there. Seems like the two hit it off very quickly after. Obviously, we don't know the passage of time. But they seem to be a good group. Interesting to see that Thor has decided to go back to Mjolnir, as the little girl has now kind of taken up Stormbreaker as her own. Interesting there. But I like the message. They're going out to save the good aliens, you know. Essentially do what the Guardians of the Galaxy are doing, as well as doing what Miss Marvel is doing, we presume. Oh, sorry, Captain Marvel. Going out there and helping the plethora of distress calls we saw as well with the Guardians and all that happening. So post-credits, I already talked about one. This was the second post-credits, technically, was Valhalla. Jane makes it to Valhalla and is greeted by Heimdall. Cool to see that little cameo there. I think this is similar to Doctor Strange once again, where the second post-credits is kind of that nice little bow, just kind of resolving. I was going to say revolving. Resolving the storyline of Jane here. So we know she's living happily in Valhalla, and there's this afterlife. As far as I know, that wouldn't loop back around in the story at all. I know in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, a video game from the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 era, oh, actually PS2 as well, I think you go to Valhalla, if I'm not remembering incorrectly, and like you interact with them at one point and all that jazz. I doubt they're going to go that route in the MCU, but it was nice to see that little, once again, the wrapping up of the story for Jane, the fun little cameo of Heimdall as we reference his son and see his son, Axel now, in this film here. So there's that. First post-credits is the building of the universe one. So I talked about the gods, the god courtroom, Zeus, all that jazz. How they're kind of power hungry, they're full of themselves, they're just there essentially celebrating. And now that Zeus, who we presumed was dead with the Thunderbolt, he's not dead, and he wants redemption for himself. He wants the control back, as it seems like people are more invested in the superheroes compared to the gods, and they're losing followers, blah, 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 whatever. So he wants to kind of create this scared feeling, I guess, from the average person about the gods once again, that relationship, so they praise them. And he is going to send his son Hercules to now deal with this. So cool, we got to see Hercules here. A little bit of a different look from the comics, at least a little bit I know of. The armor looked pretty similar, but hair, face structure, a little different. Cool to see him there. Like I said, I know very top level stuff about Hercules, but cool to see another character obviously make their debut here. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes from here. You're fine. Either open it or close it.
Okay, I'm just trying to be quiet.
It's going to be interesting to see where Herc goes from here. As far as I know, he's been a hero, joining in fights like Civil War, along with other things. So I don't know if this will be like a redemption arc where there's a film, obviously, where him and Thor butt heads, And then at the end of it, he kind of realizes, nope, I was in the wrong, and now he's kind of on track to be a hero, or if we're just going to change it, as far as I know, and just make him full villain. I don't know if at any point in the comics, or maybe his debut or origin, he was originally a villain. If it was the case, my bad, then carry on. That we'll just have to wait and see. Was there any other stuff that kind of stood out as Easter eggs? I'm sure there was some stuff. It seemed like we did see maybe one Egyptian god. I don't know if it was Ra, but they were there. And then outside of the window, we did see not the Eternals, but the giant, I think it's the Celestials. We saw one of them hanging outside the window, and as Thor and the group made their escape, we did see two more, so they were present. I'm sure there might be other Easter eggs that I might have missed out on. No Beta Ray Bill. I know a lot of people are hoping for that character to show up, but he was not around, at least as far as I had seen in this film. We got Eric Selvig in there. We got, what's her name? The girl that was in WandaVision as well. Darcy. Darcy was there too. Cool to see them both make their appearances and still have that relationship with Jane. Valkyrie was fantastic. I thought she was good. Tessa Thompson. It's interesting to see New Asgard and like her control of it. Like, it seems like she's doing really well, but when we get to the scene where everybody's kind of in a panic and a tizzy, seeing Thor kind of not have to, but seeing him step up into that role as king, even though he's not, stepping into that leadership role, whether it was talking to the town, calming them down, or talking to the kids, that was another point. I was like, this is Thor I want. Like, this is good. And it's nice to see that in those moments of panic, disarray, whatever you want to talk or call or say, call it, whatever, he's able to do that. The first battle with Jane, he wasn't really able to do that, maybe just because he was so lost in the moment, but whatever. And then, yeah, we do, thank you, Mr. G, we do get the fun moment at New Asgard that they are still putting on the plays, like we saw in Ragnarok at the very beginning when Loki was taking the guise of Odin and being in charge there. We get the return of, is it Matt Damon? Yeah, Matt Damon in there as Loki. And then we do get the debut of Miss Melissa McCarthy as the fake Hela in this play. Entertaining. Obviously, they saw the reception from Ragnarok, how that got, it was an entertaining segment. Returning it back here was a fun moment. I won't lie about that one. That was a good one. But yeah, so where does this leave us with Thor? So Thor's got the daughter, the adopted daughter, his niece, because it's Uncle Thor. Where does he go from here? So he's the first hero in the mainline MCU that has gotten a fourth movie. Everyone else stops at 3. Captain America will get a 4, but technically it's Sam Wilson taking the moniker of Captain America, so I'm going to count that as his first. Other than that, Chris Evans, Captain America, that's the actor's name. Fucking Steve Rogers, Captain America's got 3. Iron Man had 3. Hulk had 1. This is Thor's 4th. Guardians will have 3. I'm probably missing someone else or some others, but he's the first one mainline to get a 4th movie. So where does he go from here? It's a good question. I mentioned the Guardians earlier and how they were in this movie, but kind of didn't do anything. I think Star-Lord giving advice to Thor was probably the most important thing that happened in this movie. Other than that, they were just there. It's just payday, which, I mean, good for them. good on ya. But I was kind of hoping that we would have done more with that relationship. Obviously, with Endgame, him going with the Guardians at the end, seeing the fun dynamic between Star-Lord and Thor of, like, who's in charge. I thought, like, that would be this movie, would be their relationship, Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy, exploring that a little bit more, and then 5 could have been when Jane came in, but obviously it's not the case, so I don't know if he'll ever expand his relationship with the Guardians until the next big bad hits, if and when they do an ensemble movie. I don't know. It seems just like at this moment, it's just him training the young kid, which seems to be the route for a lot of the Avengers now. Obviously, you know, Hawkeye is now training other Hawkeye. Kate Bishop. Wow, almost forgot. So we got that relationship there. Obviously, we have the new Black Widow with Yelena being introduced. No teacher moment there, but we have the replacement there. So, I mean, if we want to go Captain America, Sam's taking over the moniker there. Once again, not really a teacher situation. But maybe this is another young Avenger that will eventually make it into the fold. Don't know much about her, if she is established or anything like that, but maybe that's the route they're going. I guess Kamala Khan could technically fit into that role of like the younger generation kind of taking over. Speaking of, shout out to Kamala to make it into the opening credits of the Marvel sequence, joining Moon Knight in the very last like Marvel nameplate. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say, because what else can he lose? Right now, it's just him and the daughter. He's not with Korg. He's not... Obviously, New Asgard's doing its own thing, but he's lost all these people, as we recounted before, and now he's lost Jane. What's his motivation from here? Is it just the daughter? Which is fine, if that is the case, but how do we wrap him back into things down the road? I guess time will tell. Overall, it was fine. I am seeing it again this Thursday, so maybe going at it with another viewing will help. Maybe I'll be able to pick some things out of the background a little bit more, or kind of because I know it's going to be this more comedic presentation of the character. Maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit more instead of just griping in my seat, but we'll see. Movie-wise, I think Black Panther's our next one in November, so we got a little bit of a gap in between, so just have to keep up the fun theory talk and stuff from that. But yeah, this has been another episode of the Marvel Plus podcast. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed the movie. If you haven't seen it, hope you enjoyed my review. That's odd. Then go see it, but whatever. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. I'd be happy to talk more Marvel and more Thor with you guys. And remember, my name is Bret, aka Enigma911. You can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma911 every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Join the chat, join all the fun theory talk. If you're a subscriber over there, love to have you in on all the fun. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. You go over to YouTube the very next day, 12 p.m. Eastern. Drops over there. Give it a watch, give it a listen, and let us know what you think. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Hope you guys enjoyed the film, and thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.